Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us this evening for our May Town Hall. I'm sorry that I couldn't be live with you all this evening, but I still wanted to be sure I get out the most important updates that we have for each of our communities. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Jackie Medcalf and I am the Executive Director of Texas Health and Environment Alliance. The topics that we're going to cover tonight is our health survey initiative, the San Jacinto River Waste Pit Superfund site, the Jones Road Groundwater Plume Superfund site, and a birth defect study for Greater Fifth Ward. And I'm going to just touch on a few updates for each of these areas and nothing too in depth, but we will definitely be following up with more specific community items in the near future. All right, so first, for those of you who have been following our efforts, you are aware that we have been running a health survey initiative. So we are going to run this campaign through the end of May. And so we essentially are asking all of our community members to please take 5 minutes of your time and fill out our health survey that's located on our website. If you go to our homepage at txhea.org, you will see a link you can click to our community health survey. The survey is also now on our website in English and Spanish. So we're hoping to break down some of those communication barriers and that we can be more inclusive of the community members that we work with and make sure that we truly are able to hear from everybody. So what we're seeing so far is we're seeing a lot of reports of autoimmune disease. We're also seeing reports of brain cancer and cancers of the cancers and tumors of the spine, as well as retinoblastoma. And it's just so heartbreaking when we see reports of retinoblastoma and cancers in children. Just the other day, I found out about a child who lives near the San Jacinto River that is battling retinoblastoma. And, really no family should have to go through that. And so we need you to help us help you and try to get to the bottom of what types of disease the communities we work with are suffering from. Also, I ask, that you take the health survey, but also that you share it with your neighbors, your colleagues, and your family and friends as well. All right, for the San Jacinto River Waste Pit Superfund site, I hope to have our community specific meeting next week. So 1 week from today, I plan to go in much greater depth of all the things going on with this site right now. If you are from these communities, you're likely aware of the more recent delay from the EPA. And so we met with the EPA last month in April. And I'm going to go into detail in the meeting next week with all of the items that were covered. Just in summary, these are the items that were covered by the EPA in the Community Advisory Committee meeting. And so they talked about the remedial design updates, both for the Southern Impoundment and the Northern Impoundment. Updates regarding TxDOT and the I-10 bridge replacement. Some items with the San Jacinto River Fleet, as well as communication with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And most importantly for all of you, the community updates. So we've discussed putting together a public meeting. And so the EPA is currently under travel restrictions. And so they're not allowed by, the EPA's current policy to travel. And so they're going to host a virtual community meeting. And we are working with them as well as our commissioner's office to put together a viewing station in Highlands. And so essentially our team is going to set up, we'll have the location confirmed for you soon. Our team is going to set up at a location, maybe the community center, maybe a church in town, and we will stream the meeting. And residents can join us in person there to view the meeting and engage in the meeting, or residents can join from their home or wherever virtually. So I know a lot of folks don't like Zoom. They don't like to tune in virtually. And the EPA will host the meeting on Microsoft Teams. And so it was important to us to be able to try to get as many people involved as possible to host a viewing station. Love this work from also the technical working group meetings are ongoing. Those are monthly regular meetings, and we were anticipating the final design for the Northern Impoundment this summer, and now that it's likely not going to be released in the pre-final form until January of next year. We will also be looking at then the next step of the final design in February of next year. Now, I know that our organization, community members, and many other entities and people were not happy about this delay. It has been a long process, and it's been several years since the record of decision was signed and since the EPA and the responsible parties entered into this design agreement. And that actually took place in April of 2018. And so I can assure you we're definitely having some tough conversations about, what's going on, and, the EPA needing to hold these parties accountable and get this site cleaned up. And so I really look forward to the opportunity for y'all to hear from the EPA yourself. But I hope to see you next week at our meeting specifically for San Jacinto, where we will dive much deeper into all of these details. All right, for the Jones Road Groundwater Superfund site, we have just one update that I wanted to let you guys know about, and that is that we are going door to door in the area you see here on the map. This is the area where over half of this area is on groundwater wells. It also sits above the plume of contamination. And so we're going to be going door to door with our partners at UTMB and Baylor College of Medicine, and talking to folks about their health concerns in the community. And so this is part of our ongoing efforts with this Superfund site, but also with our health survey initiative. We also have some other volunteers, so thank you to our stellar community members. And if you are interested in volunteering, we would love to have you. Our team will be meeting at the Ace Hardware on Jones Road at 3 o'clock on Saturday, May 8th. For more information, you can contact our team member, Christine, and her email is ksingleton, SINGLETON @txhea.org, or you can call our office, 281-315-5242. And we would love to have you join us out in the field talking with your neighbors in your community. The other item here, I've been month after month talking with y'all about our partnership with UTMB and Baylor College of Medicine, and we're going to be meeting with them later this month, and I'm quite excited to hear what they have to report. They've actually been looking into what type of health data they can get and they have access to that those of us in the general public don't have access to. So this is really strengthening our efforts to better understand the health of the community, and I'm really excited for that meeting. So we'll bring y'all updates as we progress through the summer. All right, the other item here is the birth defects study that we were very recently informed of for Greater Fifth Ward. So transitioning now into, our efforts in Greater Fifth Ward, what you're looking at is a study area. And so essentially, this road, those of y'all from the community, y'all recognize these lines. This road here represents Liberty Road, which the Union Pacific creosote contamination straddles. And this outer kind of curve here is the 610 loop, the northwest side of it. And so this census tract area is what Texas Department of State Health Services conducted a birth defect study for. Now, you see in red on my screen, it says birth defect study, March 2020. Why are we talking about this in April of 2021? Well, we sent Texas Department of State Health Services, or DSHS, a letter in November of last year, November of 2020, asking that they look into certain types of cancer, more types of cancer in children, and also that they conduct a birth defect study for the 21 census tract area that they've focused on for some of their cancer investigations. That's not what you're seeing here. This is a much smaller area. And so the agency responded in April of this year. So they responded about mid-month last month to our November letter. And they informed us that, in fact, they had already conducted a birth defect study and published it in March of 2020. I've yet to find it on their website. So if you find it, please let me know. But a big problem here is the breakdown of communication, right? We know that we have problems in this area, and the best way to solve problems is with clear and transparent communication. And when you, the community, first and foremost, isn't hearing from the agency, isn't being made aware of these items, that's concerning. So my understanding is that this study was mentioned kind of in passing to the city of Houston, but other than that, every other agency, elected official's office, community member that I've checked in with was not aware of this. So it's not what we need to be seeing. And so our team right now is working on a response to the agency to this assessment that they did. So what they did is, for this study area that you see here on the screen, Texas Department of State Health Services looked at 7 types of birth defects. That's it, 7. And they pulled the rates for those birth defects in this area and then compared them to the rates or prevalence in Harris County. Now, that's not what I typically see. Typically, when either we work with the state or we review birth defect studies that the state has conducted, they're comparing the study community to the state's averages. So that's what we need to see. We need to see consistent methodology for the agency. It's concerning to me that they compared this study area to a county that is home to one of the largest petrochemical complexes in the world, that we know has abnormally high rates of disease time and time again. These studies show that. So we need to see this community have a chance at getting some real comparable data and being compared to what a normal community should look like, not one that's home to industry and high disease rates. So that's going to be a big part of our response to the agency, along with the communication breakdown. So this is a little table I put together from the data that was in the state's report. If you are not seeing the report online like me, please feel free to email us and ask for the report. Our general email is info@txhea.org. Please feel free to email us, request the report. We'd be happy to share it with you. But there were a lot of numbers and a lot of technical jargon in the table that was presented in the report. So I just thought this would be a little bit easier for our community members' eyes. So when we're talking prevalence, essentially that means the frequency or the rate that is observed in the specific area per 10,000 live births, okay? So to the left, you will see the 7 specific types of birth defects that the state assessed. Then the next column, you will see the prevalence or the frequency in the study area, which was that map I just showed you. And then you will see the prevalence in Harris County. So first was spina bifida, and with the specification there, the prevalence here was slightly higher than the prevalence of Harris County. Then they looked into pulmonary valve defect, and again, just barely slightly higher than the prevalence in Harris County. You're going to see that theme here for the most part. Next, they looked at a heart syndrome, and that again was slightly higher in the prevalence per 10,000 births in these communities than across Harris County. The next one is actually a little bit lower, and that's looking at the cleft palate, and that's the cleft palate alone. Then they looked at the cleft lip with or without cleft palate, and that was higher in prevalence than Harris County. The next one was a gastro birth defect, which what this one is when a child is born with their digestive tract exposed outside of their body. It's absolutely horrible. I know in the community I come from, mothers who have been through this, babies who have been through this, and this is just it is really terrible. And what we see here is the prevalence in the study area at 8.14. Then looking at the prevalence in Harris County, we see 4.16. So about twice the prevalence. And I'm going to come back to that one. And then the next one was a chromosomal defect, and which is more commonly known as Down syndrome. And the prevalence in the study area was 17.63. Prevalence in Harris County was 12.23. So in our last Fifth Ward meeting, when all of the women from the community were talking about children who grew up on lavender, who had learning disabilities, Down syndrome, these types of things, here's the data to back up what the community members are saying. So this is a very, very powerful tool. This is the kind of information that must live with the city. With the community. If a report just sits on a shelf, what good is it? And this report has sat on a shelf for 13 months. So, I'm concerned about what we see here, and we need to see a couple more steps being taken. One item here that's a little complex, going back to this GI birth defect, the gastro. These are the prevalence numbers that you're seeing here. But when the state crunched statistic numbers, they had found that the incident ratio for this gastro defect was about 2 times the prevalence in Harris County. Well, then the state adjusted their statistical analysis, manipulated the numbers, if you will. They adjusted it, right? To compensate for young mothers and mothers who might drink and smoke. And once they adjusted the number, it came down to about 1.4, and in terms of a statistical number. And to them, that was then not alarming, whereas the original number they computed, 1.98, was statistically significant. Then once they adjusted the data, it came back out in their opinion of not significant. I'll let you base your own opinion on that. I'm concerned about this rate no matter what. Just looking at the prevalence, I'm surely concerned about it. I'm appreciative that the state did this study, but like I said, we have a few things we'll be asking for, and we need better communication. The community needs better communication. There is movement with the agencies, and there's actually been some positive movement involving Department of State Health Services. So this is a little bit of writing here from Lone Star Legal Aid, and it reads, in March 2021, Department of State Health Services responded to the passive soil gas survey results, stating that it would be conducting an exposure health assessment to analyze whether community members are coming into contact with contaminants, and if so, the potential for health impacts. More recently, Department of State Health Services sent a letter to the TCEQ in which it echoes the community group Impact and Lone Star Legal Aid's concerns about the establishment of an exposure pathway, as well as their recommendation that more passive soil gas testing be done. So this is a good step in the right direction. The state health department is acknowledging the soil gas survey that the city of Houston has done, is saying, there's essentially an exposure pathway here. That was one of the limiting factors for the state previously for doing more investigating into the community's health. And so them recognizing this, them advocating to our state environmental entity, these are positive steps. So we're glad to see that there is movement with the agencies that is heading in the right direction. Okay, so what's next for Thea, for us as an organization, for our outreach and engagement in your communities? So right now, our team is researching birth defects associated with creosote exposure. Once we get a good grasp on what types of birth defects are commonly associated or even rarely associated with creosote exposure, then we will respond to Department of State Health Services in the coming weeks. And we will be asking that they look beyond these 7 types of birth defects that they've looked into and expand and look into more types of birth defects. Because if they're not looking into it, we don't know what else is out there other than folks knowing what they see in the community, but we won't know potentially what's at abnormal rates. Our team is moving full steam ahead with our health survey initiative, which we will conclude at the end of this month. So again, please, if you have not taken our health survey or have not shared with us what types of cancer you're seeing in your community, even if it's a simple email or a simple text, let us know what you're seeing so that we can ask the state to look into it. Because again, if we're not asking, it's not going to get looked at. The June EPA meeting. So as I mentioned, we will be hosting a virtual viewing station for the San Jacinto River Waste Pits Superfund site community meeting. The virtual meeting will be hosted by the EPA tentatively for on June 10th. And we will host an in-person viewing station in the community that residents can attend. And then the next item is the majority of the correspondence this summer will likely be via email. From time to time, you may receive phone calls from us, and from time to time, you might get a notification for a virtual event, but I likely will not be hosting it. We have a fantastic team. We have a fantastic board of directors. And if you've been following our efforts, you know that I am 8 months pregnant. This pregnancy has been pretty complicated, and we're going day by day right now. And so I do not know, beyond the next, beyond the near future, when I will be back with you virtually. But I just wanted to assure you, even in my absence, our team is fully equipped to keep all of these items moving, whether they're partnerships, whether it's correspondence with our agencies. So everything will continue moving full steam ahead. And the communication that you receive just might look a little different than it typically does. So thank you all for joining us this evening. And I look forward to the day we all get to be back in person and seeing one another in our community centers and our churches and talking about what's going on in our neighborhoods. I hope everyone has a great night. Thank you.